Welcome everyone to the Polygonal Perspective, or the PP show, how I like to yeah, did you realize that we can abbreviate it like that? Because it's EP.
PP.
Yeah. So this is episode 1. Just a reminder, go and listen to episode 0, where we talk about ourselves a bit more and the format of the show. It's essentially going to be us talking about news, what we've been playing, and then talking about the games we played recently and talk about them. The games we play usually are games we haven't played before. So in this case, for episode 1, I had Ian play Final Fantasy VIII, and
he played Pharaoh Rebirth.
Yeah, indie game from 2012. So we'll be talking about those. But first, we'll start with what we've been up to. I'll start, I guess. I've been watching The Last of Us TV show. Ian, have you seen that?
I haven't, no.
It's pretty good. I got to episode, I think, 3 or 4. It's really faithful. Really faithful. Like
you've played the games, yeah.
I have played the games. I really enjoy them. They're really well made, of course. Story is engaging, gameplay as well. It's really faithful. Even the same soundtrack. They didn't even bother with anything else, which is fine. The soundtrack to the games is pretty great. But one thing interesting about the show is how they actually approached certain kind of storylines or certain things. Instead of doing their own thing, they get an idea and then they do their own thing with that. So the event itself is still there.
Yeah, it's in the spirit.
Yeah, it's in the spirit. I think it's really cool that they did that, actually, because I feel like some of the shows or even some remake of games, I play and watch them and then I'm like, man, I've done this before.
Yeah.
I've played this before, I've watched this before. I hate to admit it, but I had a bit of that with the Demon's Souls remake. Well made, gameplay's tight, they were really faithful. But at some point when I was playing, I was like, wow, they're so faithful in that game that left me sometimes wishing that it was a bit more than it was. I don't know, maybe someone would say, well, if you're remaking a game, maybe it has to be 100% faithful. How do you like your remakes? Do you like them faithful, or would you like the new team try something else with the same setting?
Yeah, I definitely err on the side of changing things. You have to change some things because the closer you make it, I think the more, like, it's funny that you say the Demon's Souls remake's very similar, because for me as a big fan of the original, I'm very nitpicky about all the little things they changed. But I think if they took more liberties, weirdly enough, I'd be more okay with the changes that they make. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a time of Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I haven't played yet. No spoilers. But I know for a fact that they changed quite a bit there, for sure. So I'm going to make my mind about that once I play it. And of course, there will come a time where they have to address the moment of certain characters' death. I think they will keep that moment as it is, intact. I don't think you can change that and get away with it, because I think at that point,
you don't think Barrett's gonna take the blade?
I don't know. Maybe they'll go for it. I don't know.Maybe it's completely
whoever you romance at the gold saucer. That's who's gonna.
So yeah, that was Last of Us. I recommend it. It's pretty good. I was also watching Godzilla, the Netflix show. It's cool. It's a complete different take on Godzilla. It's consists of 4 movies, I think, or 3. I watched like 3 of them out of 4, I guess. It goes wild places. There's like space, there's like aliens, and it's wild.
Is it in English or Japanese?
Well, it's on Netflix, so you have English VO.
What I mean is it a Japanese?
Oh no, yeah, it is. It's. I think it was paid by Netflix, but it's a Japanese production. It's a 3D anime, essentially.
Okay.
And I think it's worth watching. And it's interesting how Japan approaches Godzilla versus the West, because in the West, Godzilla is always friendly, ends up being like frenemy or something. But in Japan, it's always the worst thing ever that happens to humanity. Original, the one done by what's his face, the Evangelion
Hideaki Anno.
Yeah. That one and this one as well. Godzilla is the ultimate enemy, kills everyone. In this one, it literally just destroys like 90% of humanity and it fucks up Earth.
There's some political differences between those two countries.
Yes. I guess it's the way they see it. Japan to this day sees Godzilla as that symbol of the nuclear weapon, symbol of the tsunamis. And in the previous movie, there's the tsunami and the Godzilla at the same time. And actually, that movie is interesting, because that one explores the whole political red tape of Japan and how, while Godzilla is destroying the city, the government is having meetings. And I think the movie ends with like an energy beam destroying the meeting room while they're still having a meeting, deciding what to do with it. It was the whole commentary about that.
Did you know that at the end of MGS2, Raiden is allowed to go off and live a happy life with his girlfriend Rose, because he is like King Kong? from New York, and he's allowed to go home. Whereas Snake is like Godzilla; he's a product of nukes, and he has to continue fighting on. That's Kojima's official stance on it.
Huh. Interesting. I mean, that sounds like Kojima for sure. I started playing Black Mesa. So I've never played Half-Life 1. I've started with Half-Life 2. I really enjoyed that game, of course. Influential game, historical, really. I played a lot of Counter-Strike, as everyone did, I guess. Most people. But
as every Eastern European did.
Yes. I mean, come on. Counter-Strike is...
Counter-Strike's awesome.
Yeah, I never played the first game. And at this point, I was like, well, might as well just play the Black Mesa. It's the same thing, right? And I'm at the start, played a couple of hours. It's interesting how the space is being used in that game. It's very spacious. You don't really see that anymore nowadays. Nowadays, every space has to be used. In that game, it's like, oh, yeah, you need to go from room A to room B. Use this humongous corridor that has nothing in it.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how that evolved.
Then also, level designers themselves were their environment artists. So you could justify, if you wanted to put a room there, you had to make it yourself. And it was also so easy to cobble. As somebody who's used Source for Half-Life 2 in this case, but it's the same tools for Half-Life 1, it is absurdly easy to rapidly iterate and build it a room out of pure BSP, pure brushes.
Yeah, actually, you make a good point. You have used that. And actually, this kind of ties into the general point of level designers. In my opinion, should probably never be also artists. There's some studios combining level design and art, and environment art. In my mind, there's just no way that these two can be combined. There's just not enough hours in the day, first of all. And also, these two different disciplines. I think in most cases, it's not really feasible to have them combined.
These days, it's definitely tough. What I like to see is I like level designers who have a visual eye. Like, as somebody who grew up modding games, nobody was there to do the art for me, so I had to learn the environment art pipeline. And I think to this day that helps when I'm building out a space and I'm thinking about the raw shapes, how I'm going to frame things as the player walks through a doorway or goes around a corner. I mean, that is architecture, and I think not all designers have that eye in it, and it's just going to help your environment artists create interesting environments.
For sure. I think definitely the way to go is combine effort, an artist and a level design. I think that produces the best results. And in fact, I really like when artists are also kind of dip into that level design territory and work with you on trying to get the best results of maybe a tight space or like a room. But I think, if you're getting overworked or if doing art prevents you from spending time on level design, that can also be not ideal. I've been watching my girlfriend play Hogwarts Legacy. What a beautiful game. Avalanche and Porky Games, I think. I'm not sure what else they did, but I guess it was combined effort from those studios. Avalanche is known for Just Cause. Every single room, every single hallway, every single corner is dense with stuff. Animation cutscenes look amazing, and they really put an effort. Probably spent a lot of time there on that, and I think it shows. If you're someone who likes Harry Potter, just the world of Harry Potter, and wants to immerse yourself, I recommend it. Have you ever read the books?
Yeah, I read the books. Seen those movies, yeah.
I've only seen the first movie, actually. I don't like Harry Potter. So I've only been watching her play, and she likes it. But I can appreciate the craft of the environments and just the amount of stuff that's there. It's an open world. It kind of plays like it's an action RPG, a bit of Souls-like there. You fight enemies, obviously, with your magic. You can roll away from attacks, stuff like that. And you do a lot of quests, side quests. Obviously, it's an open world. A lot of usual stuff you can find in maybe like an Ubisoft game. A lot of fetch quests. You open the map and there's like a million things you can do there. What have you been up to, Ian?
I just checked out the Metroid Prime Remaster on Switch.
Oh yeah, how's that?
It's really good. It almost feels like a remake. Weirdly enough, they've replaced, I think, all of the art assets. It's running in a new engine with new lighting and everything. It looks and feels really good, but it is still. It feels. I can see why they use the word remaster, because it feels like it's still running on some of the original code. It feels 1-to-1, like parity with the original. That's a great game, and the new control options make it feel even better. I don't know if you've ever played Metroid Prime.
So I've never played Metroid.
Metroid in general.
Yes, I've never played that. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I mentioned that I was more of a Sega kid, so all the Metroids kind of like went over my head.
I'm still more of a Sega kid.
Well, yeah, I've never tried Metroid. So the Metroid Prime was that the first person one?
Yeah, on GameCube.
Right. Yeah. No, I have not played that at all. So that one is out now on Switch, was it?
Yeah.
Is that on PC as well?
No, just
Switch. Okay, fair enough.
But that one's interesting because the GameCube version has a fairly unconventional control scheme where you don't use the second analog stick to look around. Instead, you can hold down a button for free look, kind of like in GoldenEye on N64. If you hold down the left trigger, this is on the GameCube controller, you switch to a strafe mode, but otherwise the left stick is used for rotating as well, back and forward. But I would say the combat doesn't have much. It has way more in common with a game like Ocarina of Time than it does with something like Halo, where it's way more about like you lock onto enemies and then from there you can circle strafe around them. Okay. And it's more about dodging attacks. The shooting, like there's no reloading. There isn't a ton of weapons switching mid-combat. It's not an FPS combat style. It's just first-person action adventure combat. And there was a Wii port that used the Wii motion controls. As somebody who's left-handed, I never quite gel with Wii controls because I want to point and aim with my dominant hand, which is my left hand. But then years of gaming has conditioned me to expect the movement on my left hand with the left analog stick or WASD or whatever. So the point is that this new remaster has new control options, and it even has a twin stick modern FPS control option.
Wait, but that feels like it flies in the face of the whole design of that game. Then, if you can suddenly do that.
So I mean, yeah, I completely agree. However, I think they've handled it in a really nice way where it still isn't like the enemies and everything in that game has been designed around the idea that you're still locking on enemies and moving, like you're staying locked on. It would be really tiring to be constantly like reorienting your aim around an enemy that circles around you. Do you know what I mean? But you can still, even with that twin stick, you can look around with the right stick, but in combat mode, you're still going to want to lock onto the enemies. So it still has the same lock on camera. So in that sense, it feels really intuitive.
It's almost a shame that they felt the need to push that into a more common control scheme of nowadays, when they could have just said, you know what, this is how it was. Maybe today we can also explore that other type of gameplay in first person. Let's just go for it. I guess it's still an option in the game, right? You can still use the old stuff. Yeah. Some games do that. I think it was it Ori and the Blind Forest did that.
I haven't played that yet.
Where you shoot a lot in that game, but you never aim. You just need to do the action of shoot, and the bullets, they kind of home into the target. So it's about timing when you shoot and your own movement.
Yeah, that's well, now I know. Now I have a game to add to my list of stuff to make you play.
What else?
I saw the new Puss in Boots.
Oh, actually, people saying it's good.
Yeah, it was good. Have you seen Into the Spider-Verse?
No, I don't like that. I like the movies, I guess. I don't know. I haven't seen that. People are saying that's good as well.
I thought it was really good.
Right,
and
okay.
I'm not normally. I haven't seen the Avengers. I'm not normally.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I'm not really a live action superhero person.
Oh my God, Ian. Okay. So but what has Puss in Boots to do with Spider-Man?
I bring it up because I feel like, it remains to be seen. But my theory is that CG movies are going to be compared to like before and after Spider-Verse, because Spider-Verse does a lot of things visually with its style, with the colors. It feels like a living comic book. It's doing all kinds of cool things that could have been done up to this point in CG animation and probably were done, but not at like that mass commercial Disney Pixar level. And now it's given other studios the courage to do things like in the fight scenes in Puss in Boots, the movie starts playing with the frame rate. It starts running at like a lower kind of comic book style frame rate. It has that kind of, the backgrounds will shift to like pure colors, almost like a Wes Anderson thing.
But does that work in a 3D movie?
Yeah.
Because I think wasn't the multiverse Spider-Verse, that's 3D as well.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 2D, but it has like that style of like, we're kind of trying to do like 2D in a 3D kind of thing. So I guess in there, if they do a lower frame rate, I guess that's maybe a little less jarring than in Puss in Boots, which looks like a full-on 3D CG movie.
I mean, I'm not an artist, but they made it work. I gotta say.
Yeah, actually, speaking of that, famously introduced or reintroduced or even invented by Arc System Works with Guilty Gear, some of the recent ones.
Yeah, maybe that was an influence on Spider-Verse.
Yeah, maybe. Where they had 3D models, a 2D fighting game, and then they, I guess to emulate the old school style, they actually messed with frames and speed of things to emulate that 2D old school style look.
Mm-hmm.
I think I tried that one of them some time ago. And it worked. It gave you that illusion of playing something older, but actually it's the 3D models.
If you played the last one, Exerd, that was the first one to do that style. But since then, there's been Strive.
Yeah, I think I played the Exerd.
Okay, so, I went back to Exerd a couple months ago because it got a rollback netcode update. And going from that to Strive, it is night and day. They've really honed their style.
Oh, really?
Strive looks a ton better. So consider that.
It looks the same, but I guess if you
in motion,
playing, yeah. Cool. Is that all for you then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. Let's get into news then. Right, news. What do I have here? I have Nintendo Direct happened.
Did you watch that?
I mean, I didn't watch it.
I
Nowadays,
watched that.
Okay. Nowadays, I just read the after when everyone just compiles the news. The most important for me was that Button Kaitos is being remade. Well, not remade, remastered on Switch. Never played those. Always heard good things about them, so I'm looking forward to that quite a bit. I think they were only on GameCube, were they? Maybe they on something else.
Yeah, GameCube.
Yeah, GameCube. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to those.
Monolith
yeah,
Soft.
Yeah, that should be good. I think that's it from me on that one. Did you have any
Kirby Return to Dreamland Deluxe, man? The one of the best Kirby games on the Wii. It's now getting an enhanced version with extra content on the Switch. So that's pretty exciting.
Okay.
Always a good day when we get a new Kirby game.
Nice. Is that Kirby? That's not set in the Mario world, is it?
No.
Okay. It's on.
You're thinking of Super Mario Brothers.
Right. Yeah. No. Yes, but they have like spin like what was that?
Shared universe. Yeah.
Like the Toad. What was that? The one on the Wii U, I think.
Captain Toad Treasure Tracker.
Yeah, that one.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Okay. I guess it was fine. And of course, I have to mention they announced the new Zelda.
Did you hear that when they didn't announce it was just a new trailer for it, but when they first announced the name of the game in a Nintendo Direct back in the fall, that Direct, the UK version, skipped. I think it skipped all of Zelda. I don't even think they showed Zelda, and people were like, "Why?" And it's because the day before, the Queen of England had died, and I think Nintendo thought it would have been in poor taste to announce that the game was going to be called Tears of the Kingdom, because obviously everybody here in England was weeping.
Yeah, man, what timing? What timing? Yeah, that was something. Okay, so then Ken Levine is back.
Yeah, he's back, baby.
He's back. Talk reports in January 2022, so a bit more than a year ago. It was a pretty scathing article, essentially kind of...
With them throwing workout?
No, well, some of that, yes, but also saying that, hey, Ken Levine had his own studio now for many years, and there's nothing new from him, and nothing's coming out. And this article is just saying that they don't think anything's going to come out, really. I mean, to be honest, fair enough. He's taking a while. Whatever you think about Ken Levine, he is an influential figure in our industry, historical figure. Worked on Thief, System Shock, and of course Bioshock. But there's also reports of his management style. I don't want to comment too much on that. I did not work with him. Maybe there's some truth to that, maybe not. At the end of the day, we can just judge what's coming out. And of course, he had his studio Ghost Story Games for a while now. He kind of founded that after Bioshock Infinite. And since then, he's been running that. No games have come out from that, apart from his new game, his first game from his studio.
Judas, yeah.
Judas. It will be out by March 2025. That is quite a while from now.
Well, so that was an investor report that said 2K said they're going to release this many games by then. I think they said I mean, between now and between 2025, it will get released. Not specifically on that day.
Yes, yeah, it says by March, right? I mean, this newest article by Eurogamer does have screenshots and a video trailer on it, but still, it's quite a long way out. It looks. Have you seen the gameplay? It has.
I saw the trailer. Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely looks like a Bioshock game.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting a very clear picture of what kind of tastes Ken Levine has, just how much of him is in Bioshock. Now that we've seen him do Bioshock and then do this, like this is very. We know what he likes now.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so, right? By the third Bioshock game, it's the type of game.
Maybe if he gets the chance to do something totally different, we'll see a totally different side of him. It's like, no, okay, this is. I mean, maybe 2K wants a Bioshocky kind of thing, but they're also making another team is making its own Bioshock. So from the way I see it, I get the impression that this is just
yeah. Actually, there is another Bioshock, isn't there?
Yeah,
they announced that recently, some time ago.
They announced it a few years ago now. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say I don't like the name Judas. I don't know why Judas needs to be brought into this.
Well, he's Jewish. Maybe it's going to be an exploration of his faith.
Oh man. Well, we got that with Last of Us. Do we need any more of that?
The Last of Us is about being Jewish?
Well, no. But have you played the second one?
I did, but I didn't finish it.
Okay, so overall, it was an exploration of, Palestine versus Israel. 100%.
Oh, now it all makes sense.
Yeah, the military guys are essentially, I'd say, Palestine, and the way that they can't let it go, they keep fighting each other. Like one does something to the other, and then the other one gets revenge, and then the other one gets revenge, and it's an unending cycle. That was the whole point. And then, of course, the other character, the Ellie's girlfriend, is Jewish, and she talks about the faith at some point as well. It wasn't anything that took away from the game for sure, but it was definitely there.
We know Ken Levine's a big fan of the Coen brothers.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen. They did a movie. Well, they did No Country for Old Men. Big influence on The Last of Us. They did a movie Serious Man. It's a great movie. It's about a Jewish guy and his life kind of falling apart. He consults a rabbi. It's kind of an exploration of the faith.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. Bioshock 1, what a game! When that came out, it was a milestone in gaming for sure. The game we are working on today draws a lot of inspiration from Bioshock.
I think virtually every game with environmental storytelling owes something at least to. I mean, I was that guy who played System Shock 2 first, but at least in terms of what the industry owes, Bioshock popularized a lot of that stuff. Suddenly, it was cool to put audio logs and skeletons on the toilet in your big fancy schmancy mid-brow RPG.
Yeah, audio logs, the way they were able to tell the story with minimal characters on screen, it was something else. Like, of course, the famous, plot twist at the end, and just the environment storytelling. That was really well done and kind of influenced a lot of games that came afterwards. Cool. Vaginas in Witcher 3 were unintentional.
Yeah.
Next topic.
I heard about that. Yeah.
They are unintentional, and I'm going to tell you why, Ian.
They're unintentional because people in the world of The Witcher, they actually. Sapkowski? How do you pronounce the guy?
Sapkowski.
Okay. Yeah, it's because he came out and he actually said this is how reproduction actually works in the Witcher world, and everything Geralt does in the books, the movies, the show, that's all just an act. Yeah. It's for show. And then they realized CD Projekt said, "Oh my God, sorry, we have to obey his wishes and remove all traces of it."
Well, okay. The actual news is that Witcher 3 got that next gen update, which is cool. I'm definitely for studios keeping up and updating the game. I'm not gonna say that every game needs years worth of patching, definitely, but CD Projekt Red prides itself on always trying to keep the games updated as much as possible and kind of maybe showing that they stand behind them more than maybe most studios, which is cool. But this one here, they rolled a lot of fan mods into this update. Again, fair enough. Except one mod was put there by mistake, and is in fact the one that adds realistic vaginas to some of the female characters.
Hashtag bring back the vagina.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think they're gonna remove that in the next patch. Actually, one of the mods on this list is that HD mod, essentially, for Witcher, which was really cool.
I still haven't played Witcher 3 yet because when it came out, my computer could run it, but it couldn't max it out. And I just feel like CD Projekt stuff is such a big spectacle blockbuster experience that you have to play that at max graphics. And the problem, recently I picked up a used 2070 Super, and then they dropped this version. So now I gotta wait some more because they keep raising the goalposts and making it look better.
Yeah, I actually haven't played that yet as well, to be honest. When it came out, my PC was not powerful enough, and then also I just decided to wait for all the expansions to come out, and then afterwards I didn't play it still. And now I guess good thing I waited, because now I can play it with this new HD patch, next gen patch.
Did you play the first two?
Yes, I played the first two.
Okay, cool.
They were
I was gonna
great.
Yeah, I was thinking I would force you to play Witcher 2.
I might play it again, just all three of them. They were one of those games that has you choose early on which side you go for, and then you stick with that side throughout the game, essentially. And I think in both 1 and 2 I went with humans. So this time I'm going to play and just choose the elves, I guess, and just go with that.
There's a Witcher 1 remake coming out as well.
Actually, yes. I should have put that in the news.
That's not CD Projekt, though. Some other team is kind of... And it sounds like maybe it'll be one of those looser remakes where it's a reinterpretation.
Oh, interesting.
I could be wrong.
I mean, I wonder if they have to be kind of like staying faithful to the books, I guess. Well, actually, no. Witcher 1 was, I think it was after the books, essentially.
Yeah, it's kind of like a gap in the story.
Yeah.
Geralt has amnesia, so they kind of write this own sort of side story in there. It's really the third one, which kind of links up.
Yeah. Okay. I think there might be... I know. I have one more news piece, and that is I was watching the Jedi Survivor gameplay that was released recently. I love Jedi game. It was such a good game. It took the Souls formula and applied it to the gameplay, and is really good at it. Usually, most of the Star Wars games that kind of deal with like lightsaber gameplay, they usually go for really a fast-paced, almost like Devil May Cry style gameplay. But this one slowed everything down and used that Souls formula, combined it with really cool traversal and light RPG elements to kind of focus more on combat, and I think it did really well. I really enjoyed that game. My only criticism maybe was that it could have used a bit more customization with gear. You could only find like ponchos and stuff.
Only ponchos?
You could build like hilts, lightsaber hilts, and get some different colors, but if in terms of the actual gear, you could only find like different types of ponchos.
I don't know, ponchos are the one customization aspect I ask for in a game.
Yeah, I think you could also customize your robot companion, but other than that, it wasn't really that much of a customization. So, sometimes you would explore environments there and you expect some rewards based on that, based on exploration, maybe like even fighting certain harder enemies, but you end up getting not very exciting loot sometimes. So I think if they iron that out, that would be pretty good. So this gameplay video for the Jedi Survivor, which is the second game, is kind of showed off some of the gameplay. It looks pretty similar. I think it's definitely going to be an iterative game. And I think when a game does something well in general, I think it makes sense to have the sequel be more of an iterative game as opposed to kind of maybe reinventing everything from scratch. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it depends. If there's room to grow, I suppose until it comes out, we won't know for sure if it's just going to be more of the same and that's not a bad thing, or if the formula starts to feel a little worn out, or if, whatever.
Yeah.
All I know is that this is Respawn, right? Respawn are just making some of the best games out there. Play Titanfall 2 if you haven't.
Have not played those yet, but I heard good things about them.
Very, very good games.
The fighting with lightsabers looked similar enough. I think now he has like, I think it's a classic. The second of anything Star Wars, suddenly he has 2 lightsabers instead of 1, just in time for number 2 in the title. But otherwise, it looked kind of similar to the actual gameplay of the first game, which is a good thing too.
Now, do these take place between Episode 3 and Episode 4?
I think they take place. I don't remember. Yeah, like they take place when the Empire is at its power. So it would have to be
between 3 and 4.
Yeah. So the Jedi's are
wiped out.
That's why the Jedi's fire. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. Okay, that's news from me. Ian, do you have anything?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get to the games we played then. Had Ian play the gap in his Final Fantasy.
Yeah. I've played a lot of Final Fantasies, but I've not played Final Fantasy VIII
There you go.
yet.
So we sat down and played that. Spent about a couple of hours. Ian played from the start of the game all the way till the assault and the boss fight with, oh god, what was its name? Like the flying. It was, a flying creature thing.
we were on some disc platform, and it was collapsing. It had run off.
You took him down from the second try, I think, was it?
Yeah, it was tight. It was tight.
Actually, I'm glad we got to that point, because that was definitely the first difficulty spike and made you take the combat seriously. And you were saying that it kind of surprised you how many systems were in play in that game.
At the beginning of that game, it really front loads you with a lot of tutorials. But despite that, the combat is very easy. I didn't feel like I was being particularly challenged. And then that boss kind of came out of nowhere and really surprised me and really made me think, okay, after I got my butt kicked the first time, all right, okay, I know about these junctions. I know about these GFs, these summons. How am I going to set up my party? And how am I going to think about things during gameplay, which was nice. Like, finally, you have an appreciation for the stuff the game is teaching you. Maybe not the best introduction as far as like I can see. I think I'd tried FF8 once for like 20 minutes at a friend's house, and I can see why I bounced off of it. It's got that bombastic CG intro, but then it's a pretty slow start. Very slowly introduces you into this world, these characters, which if you compare to the intros of FF6, 7, 9, 10, I mean, those are just masterful examples of pacing. JRPGs can be kind of slow, but Final Fantasy knows how to start off like explosions, drama, really interesting character relationships right off the get-go, and they throw you into the gameplay immediately, give you something to care about. 8 takes its time a little bit, and yeah, it has all these tutorials that don't do a great job of explaining things, but they also throw so much at you at the beginning that you don't really get a chance to internalize all of it.
When I was playing that years ago for the first time, I guess I'm the type of player that doesn't really mind that kind of slower pace, even at the start. So for me, going from 7 to 8 wasn't really that different. It does have tutorials at the start, but it kind of quickly gets you going into the Ifrit cave, if you remember. But I can definitely see how compared to like 7 or well, especially 7, because at 7 you just start, the action just starts. You jump off the train, you're going. In 9, I remember you start in the town and you have to maybe explore a bit before kind of things kick off. So maybe you could say 8 is either in the middle, in between those, or maybe it's the one that has the slowest pace. And I think after the invasion that you played, it kind of slows down again a bit. It definitely was comfortable taking its time.
And maybe Square thought they could afford to do that after 7. I mean, you trusted them. Who wasn't going to trust them circa 98, 99? Square could do no wrong.
Yeah, golden years. I mean, just the general vibe. It's essentially like a love story. Like, you even have Squall and Renault on the title graphic, they just embracing each other. It's sort of about them for the most part. So what do you think about combat compared to 7 and 9?
I thought it was an interesting combat system. It's the system where everyone is kind of a blue mage, and all of the gameplay systems revolve around this not just junctioning and drawing, but also like, one character doesn't have an item ability if you don't give them that ability ahead of time. It reminded me a little bit of Final Fantasy Tactics, the original game, how you could equip characters with things like the item ability and level those up, which I like. Over the years, I've heard some people complain that you can bust this game wide open and there's no challenge and such. But at least from my perspective of somebody who's merely played the first 2 hours, I think it's really cool that you have a game where if you sit down and you think about it, you can game the system and you can break it in half. And like, if somebody's going to pull out a game facts or a walkthrough or a strategy guide or whatever, why shouldn't they be able to have the power to bust that game wide open? Or don't do that if you want the challenge.
Well, that was essentially what ended up happening with Final Fantasy Tactics. That game,
people love that you can bust that game wide open. Right?
Yes, I guess. Personally, me, I always wished it didn't have that massive drop off in difficulty at a certain point, because you could definitely over level or over everything. Thunder God Sid by himself would just annihilate everyone at a certain point. So it depends, I guess. You may like it or not. But yeah, actually, in Final Fantasy VIII, one thing I noticed when you were playing, and I keep forgetting that, is that it didn't have equipment, the usual equipment stuff, especially because 7 and then 9 brought that back again. So there was 8 was kind of in between, where you really just had like your weapon, and it was kind of listed as your weapon, but it didn't really have anything important on it.
I think just because they want to put the focus on all the other systems at play. If you're going to introduce equipment, that not only is that more stuff for the player to worry about when building their character, but it draws away from the new systems that they've added. So I think that was a good move.
Yeah, it was definitely experimental, and the way you would use the GFs, the Guardian Forces, the summons essentially, to like as a shield, and you also equip them.
Yeah. I think it's great that Square, even at the height of their success, they weren't afraid to reinvent their franchise. That 7 plays a lot like 6, and they could have easily done that again, because a lot of people were introduced to the franchise with 7. They could have just kept coasting that. They could have made 7 2 right away. But one thing I've always respected this franchise for, one of the reasons why I'm a fan, is that even when they fail for really interesting ways. They're not afraid to, they give themselves this tremendous task of reimagining a story, a setting, a character's battle system from scratch, essentially, every time.
I have a theory that might be the main reason that allowed them to even have that drive to make so many of them. To this day, 16 is coming out this year. Imagine if it was not being reimagined every time. Imagine if it was like Final Fantasy 16 of the same world, of the same characters, and like
FF1.
Like FF1, yeah. And yeah, they really kept it up. Obviously, we're not talking about obviously 10 and 10-2, 13, 13-2 is the same. But in terms of mainline Final Fantasies, they really kept them. Even now, when they announced 16, I was like, wow, so soon.
It's funny because back in the 90s, Square would just chuck out a mainline Final Fantasy, like every other year? Sometimes almost every year. They're coming out with all these spin-offs and stuff. These days, it's weird because it feels like it's so soon. But I think it's just because we're used to them. Games just take a long time these days.
Yeah,
right?
Actually, I think if you look at how long it 15 came out, when was that?
2015?
2016?
2015?
Yeah. So let's say 16.
That was a good 6 years after 13.
I guess it just feels quick because you're just playing other things. You're reading about news. There's 14 if you're playing that. You're playing Final Fantasy. So of course, there's Forspoken just came out. So it feels quick, but actually it's not quick.
Yeah.
It's not quick at all.
And they leapfrog teams. I guess they always did that.
So yeah, Final Fantasy 8. Actually, Final Fantasy 7, if you compare that to 7, what did that game have in terms of major systems? It was materia system, right?
Yeah.
You would get materials, you would put them in weapons, like essentially like a slotting system, and you would combine the materials. But beyond that and magic, that it was like straightforward. So then if you compare that Final Fantasy 8, I had all these systems. I actually think maybe that transition was a bit too jarring for some people.
I think a lot of the best battle systems in these RPGs start off deceptively simple, and as you get further through the game, they open up. The materia system at first, it changes, like, you'll equip a materia, it'll affect like plus 1% HP, minus 1% defense. But then by the end of the game, those stats have a massive impact on how you build your character. You need to put a lot of thought into it. Or the same with the sphere grid in 10, where at first you're moving down a completely linear path, but the game starts giving you more and more choices as the game goes on. And if you do side quest stuff, they start rewarding you with more ways to experiment with that grid. I think those are great examples of something that appears really simple in the surface, but it opens up over the course of your 40, 50, 60-hour journey, whereas 8 really front loads you with a ton of stuff and expects you to understand it relatively quickly.
Yeah, I think maybe if they were to remake 8 these days, there's definitely room to maybe streamline those systems a bit better than they were. Maybe something between 7 and 8. Something that's, like you said, starts maybe more simpler, but gets progressively more advanced, and to a point where, like, by the end of the game, you are familiar with that system and can make it your own.
Give us a Final Fantasy VIII remake, but Squall has been dead the entire time.
Yeah. So we played 8, the remaster. It's called Remaster, but essentially it's on PS5. It adds certain things. It added a speed up for combat, and it added newer models. They kind of look like models from something like a Dissidia, something like that. But apart from that, a few more graphical enhancements. But one of the things that was funny, towards the end of the playthrough, Ian was talking to, I think it was Sid, in one scene, and then you had to go away from that scene, and it switched to a background, and then there in this remaster you can see that in that moment Sid was part of the background because he looked really off compared to Quistis.
Because they redid the models, the 3D models, but I wonder if maybe they had lost the source files for the original backgrounds. So the backgrounds are low res, but the models are high res.
Yeah.
And then the UI is high res as well. And this is why, like, I thought it was cool to try it out here, but ultimately I'm an old fuddy-duddy who's going to play it on original hardware, probably on a CRT. And the reason for that is just, even if arguably the graphics are better in the remaster version, graphical improvements in terms of poly count, texture resolution, as far as like a coherent aesthetic experience, if you play it on PS1, then everything is going to be the same quality.
Yeah.
And it'll look great on a CRT regardless.
Yeah. I guess it depends on the individual. I think for me, this game, more than any others, showed how jarring it can be when you do, look, I don't want to say half job or like half-ass job, but like, you know, when you just add models for characters and leave everything else as it was, it really stands out. Everything Squall does, like, you were controlling Squall on these backgrounds, and he looked like so out of place. He looks so detailed compared to the backgrounds.
And even there's a case being made against, like, Squall is high resolution, but then he looks a little weird when he pivots into those fixed 8 directions that you have to move in the game. If the graphics are higher quality, then you also expect like a higher fidelity, more responsive movement, which the game doesn't allow.
No, yeah. What they did there works a bit better in combat, because in combat it's 3D throughout.
Oh yeah.
So there it works a bit better, but even then, for overall experience, the PS1 or maybe the initial 2003 PC release of Final Fantasy VIII is probably the way to go, because that was just a straight port to PC, I think. Another thing they did for this one was they removed the Pocket Station support and added an Angelo minigame. We didn't get to that, but you know, it's something I guess they had to do because obviously remastered on PC, so the Pocket Station is not going to be a thing. But you mentioned that you wanted to try that on PS1.
Yeah, I mean, these days you can just go on Yahoo Auctions Japan and get a Pocket Station for like 500 yen, and
I never had one.
They were never. I don't think they were sold outside of Japan. I don't think there are any English language games aside from FF8 that have Pocket Station support. But
wait, so that was literally a device for one game?
Well, in North America, sorry.
Right,
So in Japan, I think there's something like 200 games that have some Pocket Station functionality. But there's a lot of games like Crash Bandicoot 3, the Japanese version has the Pocket Station support. It's been removed in the other versions. I wonder if there's ROM hacks that could add that stuff in. So that's something that'd be fun to play with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I figure for $5-10, try out this Chocobo mini game. Have a Pocket Station just for the cool factor. Just be the only kid on your playground with a Pocket Station, on his keychain instead of a Tamagotchi or a Dreamcast VMU.
What do you think about the characters and writing? Does it hold up? I was personally surprised about Squall, actually. Him being the moody teenager kind of still is there, but it actually holds up a bit better than I remember.
Yeah, I didn't think he was that bad.
But some of the other characters were quite cringy, though.
I feel like he's not so bad because everybody around him is a total dork.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe if you were like 14 in 1999, maybe you thought that those other characters were cool.
I don't remember. Maybe yes, but I just, the Zell and Cypher, that combo was something else. Even in those 2 hours, I just remember Zell he looked like he was on drugs, and Cypher was like, "I'm gonna tell you about my romance." I can't believe he just said that.
Yeah, he thinks he's very cool.
Yeah, they were different times.
Yeah, weirdly enough, I mean, seven has a weaker localization, but I feel like that writing comes across better. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, because in 9, for example, there wasn't really anything like that there.
9's very earnest.
Yeah, Like they wanted to have teen angst.
It's got a high school setting,
Yeah.
so it's a little more realistic.
Yeah, because you start in the Seed Academy, right? These gardens. So maybe they wanted to kind of emulate those relationships that the students would have between each other.
Yeah, I think because the setting is a little more grounded, the tone is a little more grounded than like the high octane action fantasy of 7 or the earnest fantasy playbook of 9. That any weakness in writing is going to shine through a little more.
Yeah, for sure.
It's got its charm in the set. Like it's got that cheesy JRPG appeal to it, though.
Yeah, and the cheese continues with the romance as well. Like Squall and Renoa eventually, like throughout the game, like they lean on that for sure.
Is it a good romance?
It's fine. I remember thinking that it kind of pays off. I guess I think Renoa is maybe more interesting than most other characters in that game. So she kind of carries the game a bit. I mean, maybe I'm misremembering. It's been many years since I played, so I feel like in 9 there's a bit more balance in all different characters. You kind of got enough of all of them overall by the end of the game, at least.
Mm-hmm. Best Final Fantasy romance go?
I think most people would say 6, but I think Tactics.
Tactics is a romance?
Well, yeah. Delita and Princess Ovelia, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So
I suppose, yeah. I thought he was just using her.
Well, yeah, that's.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so
Yes.
I suppose it doesn't have to end in a happily ever after. Yeah.
No, yeah. I guess also like 13 tried to kind of lean on that as well with Vanille and what's Snow and Vanille.
I have not played that game.
Oh, right. They're like a couple straight away from the beginning, and that continues on. 15's romance was so bad actually. Now that you remind me.
15 is not about the romance; it's about the bromance.
Well, yes, but then at the end, at the end, when you have to, he looks at the picture and you can then put whatever screenshot you made in the game, and people kept doing memes like he would look at one of his bros or a chocobo or a cake. But I think the default idea is that he's looking at
her, yeah. What's her name? Luna
Freya. But the problem is that they didn't establish any of that. He was supposed to be on his way to America, or say hello or something, and he doesn't even get to do that. You finished it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So she dies, and even before she dies, the whole relationship was just not. It was not explored enough.
It felt like an arranged marriage.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
It was arranged marriage, but it was okay because they were childhood friends or something like that.
She was just busy with other things. She was not even.
It was just a political unification,
I guess.
Totally loveless, despite what they make you think.
I guess if they made it like that, if they told the story from that perspective, like they none of them want to get married, they're just doing it for that, then maybe that's fine. But the way that he then ends up sitting on the throne, looking at that picture, like remembering, and I think she appears like as a ghost or something like that. You see her there. It's like, why is she there? You are not a couple. Like you didn't spend any time with each other. But yeah.
Well, I liked 8. I definitely will return to that at some point to finish that. It was fun.
Nice. Okay, so I played Pharaoh Rebirth.
Pharaoh Rebirth. Released in, it's Pharaoh Rebirth Plus.
Right.
Which came out in 2015 or so.
Do you know what I added to the Plus?
I don't know, actually. I haven't played the non-Plus version. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the original release was freeware.
Okay.
Plus was the paid version, but I don't know for sure. Developer's Ladybug, so they're an indie developer out of Japan. The game's running on a custom engine of their own, and I had searched play it because Ladybug have released a lot of games since then, but this was, I think, their first big paid title that sort of paves the way for, Touhou Luna Nights is the big one that most people know them for. The Touhou fan game that has the same kind of Metroidvania gameplay, really nice sprite art, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So before I talk about my impression of the game, tell me what stood out for you when you played it.
So the first one of theirs that I played was the Shin Megami Tensei Synchronicity prologue. It was just again, it was a licensed game that they did to market SMT Strange Journey Redux on the 3DS, and I was expecting it to be like a 20-minute cheap title, and I was really blown away that it was like this solid 2-hour experience. Just really caught me out of left field how good it was. So I had to check out all their other stuff, and I played through all their stuff. And I don't know if Pharaoh Rebirth is my favorite, but I think it's a great introduction to what they do, because in some ways, like, you're only going up from here,
Right.
in terms
Okay.
of the polish.
Right. Well, I played the first introduction level and then a bit of the second level as well, or the actual first level, and it was pretty clear that it was a Metroidvania through and through for sure. And someone who hasn't played too many of those, I'm going to go back to it and finish it. I enjoyed it straight away. It was lacking in terms of customization or even having an option screen. Stuff like that kind of put me off a bit. I would have wished to be able to just customize basic things like buttons and other things. I can't even turn the sound down, to be honest. That was not great. But once you sit down and start playing, you forget about that, I guess.
What do you think of that writing?
Writing stood out straight away. It was really fourth wall breaking. I think they leaned a bit on like the Metal Gear Solid type of stuff, where you play as this, I guess, archaeologist that got turned into a rabbit, and every so often you get interrupted by the call from your buddy up in the HQ, and the buddy keeps talking about spilling coffee on himself, keeps talking about save points, stuff like that, kind of breaking the fourth wall at times, or just being a goofball. So the writing is definitely not taking itself seriously, but I think if they keep that throughout the game, I think overall it could be like a pleasant experience, I guess.
We thought it was quite funny. We were laughing the whole time.
Yeah, there was some funny bits for sure.
So I mean, it's definitely one of those. Not a great translation, but I think it gets the job done in terms of making you smile.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's pretty obvious that there will be a lot of fun interactions with characters. Pretty early on, you meet this turtle in a helicopter that kind of starts fighting you. Actually, now that I think about it, that's also a bit of a Metal Gear Solid throwback, maybe.
Turtle in a helicopter.
Well, just fighting a helicopter.
A raven in a tank.
Well, I mean, you fight helicopters in Metal Gear Solid for sure. Yeah. So yeah, it's really lighthearted. Your character looks really like a cute plush toy, essentially. There's like combat. You can use your ears as a weapon, which is already funny. You get new items that help you reach unreachable places or go back and kind of find items in previous locations. So yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of playing it. You mentioned that it wasn't a long game, right?
Metroidvania games they're usually on the shorter side. I would say that one's probably about 4 or 5 hours.
Okay. It feels like it would be a longer game, but because it mentions after you finish the intro area, it mentions that it has like you need to find 7 artifacts or something.
Yeah.
So I guess it'll be like 7 levels at least.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess maybe around 4 or 5 hours, depending on the size of the levels.
And if you want to go back, collect more stuff, there's a post game area as well.
Sometimes it's how much you can extend the gameplay. You can definitely go back a lot and backtrack and explore. So there's different freedom in that. As someone who barely finished any Metroidvanias fully, I want to experience quite a few of them. Some of the other games I'm looking at is Bloodstained, for example. I heard that one is pretty good. From the creator of, obviously, Castlevania.
Creator of Symphony of the Night, Koji Igarashi. Yeah. That's one you have to play first.
Another one that actually is on my kind of list to play is Hollow Knight. People keep talking about that one. So yeah.
La Mulana, Super Metroid, Metroid Prime.
Yeah, quite a few of them. Yeah, I guess there's nothing else to say really. I mean, it's not, that game is not really dense with story lore
there's not as much to say compared to say FF8, but then FF8 Serge is right. It does take about a couple hours to get into the meat of the gameplay and start thinking about everything it's presenting you. Whereas something like Pharaoh Rebirth, 30 minutes-ish? Was that about the chunk
I think we ended up playing almost an hour, maybe 40 minutes.
Okay. But I think it's easy. It's much easier to get the gist of it. But then also because it's a simpler game, much simpler game. So
yeah, for sure. But I definitely enjoyed it. It was, I think it was kind of like, it was easy to play. Is one thing. It's like it wasn't, bombarding you with systems, or the only thing that was like you could find these items and you could combine them, I guess, to kind of create special effects. You could find like buff items that would increase your health points and stuff like that, but it doesn't really have any other kind of deep systems, or at least I haven't seen them yet. You find items to buff yourself, or to kind of collect things, but otherwise, you have a jump, you have an attack, and you have like a dash thing. I guess you will use them to. I found a hook, like a grappling hook. Oh, actually no, a gun as well.
Yeah, softball gun. You've consumed some consumable items.
Nice. So yeah, that was that for that game, and I think that will wrap up the
Creative Symphony of the Night, Koji Igarashi. That's one you have to play first.
Another one that actually is on my kind of list to play is Hollow Knight.
La Mulana, Super Metroid, Metroid Prime.
Yeah, quite a few of them. Yeah, I guess there's nothing else to say really. I mean, it's not, that game is not really dense with story lore,
there's not as much to say compared to say FF8, but then FF8, Serge is right. It does take about a couple hours to get into the meat of the gameplay and start thinking about everything it's presenting you, whereas something like Pharaoh Rebirth, 30 minutes ish, was that about the chunk?
I think we ended up playing almost an hour, maybe 40 minutes.
Okay. But I think it's easy. It's much easier to get the gist of it. But then also because it's a simpler game, much simpler game. So
yeah, for sure. But I definitely enjoyed it. It was easy to play. It wasn't, bombarding you with systems. You could find these items, and you could combine them, I guess, to kind of create special effects. You could find like buff items that would increase your health points and stuff like that. But it doesn't really have any other kind of deep systems, or at least I haven't seen them yet. You find items to buff yourself, or to kind of collect things, but otherwise you have a jump, you have an attack, and you have a dash thing. And I found a hook, like a grappling hook. Oh, actually no, a gun as well.
Yeah, softball gun. You've consumed some consumable items.
So yeah, that was that for that game, and I think that will wrap up the show for today.
We'll talk about what we're gonna play next.
Yes, we can, I guess. So next time I'm gonna have Ian play the Jedi game.
Oh, okay. There you go.
And Ian?
I'm going to have Serge play Snatcher.
Snatcher. Okay. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, it's a Hideo Kojima game.
Oh, right.
On the Sega CD.
Okay. I have not played that one.
I think you're gonna like this one.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And with that, thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.